Ohio State is favored on FanDuel by 20.5 over Penn State. The over-under in this game is 43.5. Zach, we thought this was going to be a 1 versus 3 matchup early in the season. We thought this would be a 1 versus 2. This was supposed to be a huge game for these two. People were picking Penn State to beat Oregon early in the season. That did not work out. Now we are here. James Franklin is fired. Terry Smith is the head coach of Penn State. Ohio State looks like they have not missed a step. They are the #1 team in the country. And it's feeling very weird, this game, because this game has always seemed to be a staple of two very good teams in the Big Ten for years upon years upon years. And here, when we find ourselves, it's gonna be the last time we see this game in the regular season for a while. And Penn State has kind of fallen apart a little bit. They're still a very talented team. Drew Allar is out still. He's gonna miss the entirety of the season, so they don't have their 5-star quarterback in him. But definitely a lot of motivation here for guys like Jim Knowles and other players who were from Ohio, like Chaz Coleman, the star freshman defensive edge for this team. So there's a lot to talk through with this game. Before we get into the position battles and stuff, Zach, just what's your thoughts on this game? Maybe get into Jim Knowles and his kind of return to Columbus in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, this game is weird because I think if you look at the record and look at what has happened to Penn State, conventional wisdom says Ohio State wins big time. And I think you add in, you mentioned Jim Knowles, Ryan Day today was asked about Jim. They have not stayed in touch. It wasn't a great breakup between Jim Knowles and Ohio State. And I don't think the Jim Knowles experience has been particularly helpful at Penn State. I think it's taken longer to install the defense, which I think a lot of people said that might happen.
You need to take a victory lap on that because you were right. I was not. I thought, well, we can get that into that in a second, but take your victory lap on that because you were right on that one.
Well, I to be fair, I think a lot of people thought, I think a number of people thought that, and I wouldn't say I was all the way there. I think I was like on the fence. I'm not so sure about that. But I mean, to be fair, I also picked Penn State as my national champion. So I clearly wasn't all the way over there. But I'll take a mini victory lap on it. But I think so. Conventional wisdom, I think you would look at this game and be like, oh, Ohio State's going to mop the floor with them. I'll just remind you what Ohio State, Penn State has been over the past 10 years. There have been very few blowouts. Like 2015, it was a 38-10 blowout. 2020, it was a blowout, but it was probably closer than people expected. Aside from that, it's been fairly close. Like even 2022, where the score, I think it was 44-21. That game is incredibly misleading. Like Penn State was controlling that game for a large stretch of that game. 2021, where Penn State was a disappointment, it was a close game. 2023 and 2024, they were close games, like one-score games. So I just don't. I know that James Franklin's not there anymore, but the DNA of that program is still there. They have talent, and I think they have a matchup they can exploit, which is their defensive line against the right side of Ohio State's offensive line. Tegra Shabola and Philip Daniels and Josh Padilla have really struggled the past few weeks. Tegra Shabola has been below average. Philip Daniels, and he's been below average kind of all season. Philip Daniels has struggled the past couple weeks against Wisconsin, against who'd they play? Illinois. And Penn State's defensive line has got legit dudes still. Like they haven't performed as well as you'd like, but Zane Durant and Denai Dennis Sutton and Chaz Coleman and those boys can get after it. So I would just caution anybody, like the line to me, even if you pick a blowout, I think the line feels too big because of the talent that Penn State has.
Yes, Penn State has talent. I agree with you there, but it's just not being utilized. Like that,
Correct.
there's a reason why I brought up Jim Knowles at the beginning of this one, and it's the fact that right now this Penn State defense is not playing fast and free. This Penn State defense is thinking too much, and honestly, it's kind of what was happening at Ohio State last year until Ryan Day told Jim Knowles to change the defense. I mean, there were guys for Ohio State last year that were in their third year of playing in Jim Knowles' system and were still thinking too much. They've said it in interviews after the fact. Now,
Mhm.
I thought Jim Knowles would learn from that and say, oh, okay, the defense is much better when I do it the way Ohio State and Ryan Day had me do it. I don't like that they had me change it, but I'll go someplace else and show them that it can work anywhere. No, he went someplace else and said, I'm going to do it exactly the way I want to. And it's turned out to not be very good. So to me, this entire game for Penn State hinges on if Jim Knowles has changed things or not. And honestly, like I know we're doing position battles, but like my position matchup in this one is the offensive coordinator versus the defensive coordinator for Penn State. It's Brian Hartline versus Jim Knowles, and there's also some talk there with Brian Hartline possibly going and being the head coach of Penn State. You know, like if Brian Hartline puts up 40 on Penn State, are they more likely to hire him to be their head coach? I don't know, but it is interesting to think through all of this stuff. And Ryan Day in his press conference today, he made it pretty clear that there are bad feelings between him and Jim Knowles. Now he didn't come out and say that, but when he was asked, how he felt about him, he said, some people, some relationships when they break off are good, sometimes they're bad, and we can all feel certain things. And then he kind of paused and he looked up and he said, "But we are human." And I was like, okay, message received. So you can tell this game means a lot to kind of show things to Jim Knowles. Zach, tell me if I'm crazy here, but this this kind of feels like Michigan last year. Ryan Day coming in with something to prove. He's got an agenda,
Mhm.
it sounds like. Were rumblings that, I mean, we talked about it, that Ryan Day had an agenda of trying to run the ball in that game. Is Ryan Day too caught up in a personal vendetta here, and he's going to focus more on trying to take down the Penn State defense than he is in actually just trying to go out there and win the game? You think about Penn State, they have a backup quarterback. The offense is most likely not going to be good, but they do have a good running back in Katron Allen. They're going to try some new things with some young wide receivers. I don't think that's going to work super well for him, but if Katron Allen can get loose and have a couple big runs, you could see some points for Penn State. And if Jim Knowles comes out there and really gets in Ryan Day's head, this could be a game close into it. I'm not saying I'm picking it, but like this is giving me Michigan vibes a little bit from last year. And it's at home. This is another home game for Ohio State, just like it was last year for Michigan.
So I was going to pick this game close, and everything you just said just gives me so much confidence that Ohio State's going to run away with this. Because I agree with you, it does have Michigan vibes, except there's no M logo on the Penn State Nittany Lion.
No, but there's a personal vendetta for Ryan Day.
Yeah, he's had other personal vendettas though, and every single one of them except Michigan,
Lou
like
Holtz.
evil, right? Yeah, Lou Holtz, and like,
Please don't yell at another elderly man after the
yeah,
game, Ryan. We do not need to relive that, okay?
I,
Sorry, go ahead.
what? No, but like, I just like there is a sense of like angry Ryan Day, and like angry Ryan Day under control, like I think Ryan Day has learned his lesson. And he did not say it was a matchup game, but he said it's going to be a fight, which typically whenever he says it's a matchup game, it's like, all right, prepare for him to kind of be conservative. And like, he didn't say it's a matchup game. He just said they're talented. You don't know what to expect. And I don't know, just as you were talking, I'm like, this isn't Michigan.
Well, and I
It,
think the difference between this and Michigan, right, is that Michigan, like Penn State, has not beaten Ryan Day the past few
yeah.
years, and this is where I was gonna turn it and say I'm actually gonna pick Ohio State to blow Penn State out,
Yeah.
because this is not. a situation where Ryan Day is in his head and
No,
Penn State's
no.
beat him the last 3 times or anything like that, and the fans are gonna come picketing at his doorstep if he loses the game. Like, to me, this is one where Ryan Day just says we're gonna let loose completely. We're not gonna try to win this game in a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna literally throw Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate on streaks down the field every single snap, and if they're ever open, Julian Sain's gonna hit them.
Yeah.
And stop it if you can, but I don't think you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm off my score prediction.
Yeah. I also think that the linebackers for this Penn State team are going to be so lost in the RPO that Ohio State's going to run
agree.
in this one. Dom DeLuca is not a bad linebacker, but he's like a linebacker you want to play like 20, 25 snaps a game, right?
Yeah.
Kind of come in for some relief, do some stuff. He is not the linebacker you want to be, your best linebacker out there. And I know Amari Farrell's out there too. So I'm not trying to say that he's better than Amari Farrell, but he's playing snaps like one of the best linebackers right now. And that's just not what you want. I think Ohio State's gonna really get after him with the RPO. Dave says, "Come on, JR. Ohio State has this easily. It's freaking Penn State with the Gophers are to Iowa. Penn State is to Ohio State." You read my mind, Dave. You read my mind. I mean, that's what I was gonna go to, is that Ohio State's not lost to Penn State like this.
Yep.
Penn State's got him a couple times. In fact, the last time Penn State beat Ohio State, Penn State had an interim head coach.
Yep.
Or
in
at
Columbus.
Ohio State.
In Columbus, yeah.
At Ohio State.
I was going to say James Franklin beat him once, but
sorry.
Yeah.
At Ohio State, there was an interim head coach.
Yeah.
So
I still think that offensive line, defensive line thing is real for Ohio State, though, and I think that could give them problems. But I think you're right with the RPO. Like, I think they can mitigate that some with the RPO, because I think the linebackers will be lost enough where it's just not going to matter.
And honestly, like, that's one of the things that I feel like Ohio State has done so well with their offensive line. Like, they have some mean dudes up there. Luke Montgomery, Austin Seyerveld are good offensive linemen, but you can also mitigate Phillip Daniels and Taylor Shabola because of the RPO and what you can run, right? I mean, they are consistently running RPO where, fake it to Bo Jackson or whatever, and then you give it to the tight end or whoever is streaking across the side of the field. And I think, honestly, in this one, coming off a bye week, I think you're going to see the load of the carries go to the true freshmen, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State's done with CJ Donaldson and James Peoples. You might see some of them, but I don't think you're going to see them be the workhorses like they were.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson already took over the number 1 running back spot.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
I have Ohio State winning this game 38-10. I think Penn State's going to get a few plays here and there, probably get to 10. Maybe it happens early in the game. I still think Katron Allen's a good back. I think Vega coming back for Penn State is really going to help their offensive line. But I think Penn State will get some stops of Ohio State, but I think also I cannot imagine that Jim Knowles has completely changed the defense to make it more simplified at this point. You could do that with 3-year players in your system. I don't think you can do that in a bye week with players who have been in your system for less than a year.
Yeah.
So, what was your prediction?
Well, so my original prediction was 24-13. I can't pick that.
Because I've convinced you not to?
Yeah, well, I just think the narrative in my head, I was thinking about, like, James Franklin, Penn State teams with a Manny Diaz at defensive coordinator without personal stakes. I just think this is Ryan Day is going to be out for blood. 42-6.
I think he is too. He is too.
Yeah. I just don't. And I think the more I think about it too, I'm thinking about the offense. I just don't. Even with Vega coming back, I just don't see how this Penn State offense is going to move the ball against this defense.
Yeah, I think Katron Allen, the run game, I think, Andy Kotelnicki's taking a lot of crap right now, and I get it. Like, the guy's not been good this season, but he still does do a lot of different things and give him a bye week. I'm sure he's going to scheme up some stuff. Maybe they're trick plays, whatever it is. And maybe they just don't work on Ohio State. I mean, that's very possible too. But I,
Yeah.
I mean, we were hyping this guy up as the best offensive coordinator in the Big Ten in the preseason. I have to think he gets at least one touchdown on Ohio State.
Counterpoint, backup quarterback against Matt Patricia.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And he also has had a bye.
Yeah, that's true. But he's also only seen 1 week of the backup quarterback. So
I don't think that's going to matter.
okay, yeah.
I think he's going to have that kid seeing stars.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. What are the predictions here in the chat? We have Philip says 34-7, Ohio State over Penn State. Rafe says 50-7. Wow, for Ohio State over them. And then Joshua is in here. Appreciate you being here, Joshua. He says 34-17, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Sounds like everybody thinks Ohio State's going to cover or be close to covering.
Yeah.
I will say Ohio State has covered every game this season, so
yeah,
they're undefeated against the spread.
I'll just say one other thing. If Ohio State does indeed blow out Penn State and people keep comparing Alabama and their tough, gritty win against 3-5 South Carolina.
Preseason number 15, South Carolina.
Yeah. And if they say, oh, so it just proves Alabama's greatness. I'm going to record a particular standalone video shouting from the rooftops how ridiculous that is that Ohio State doesn't get credit for beating 3-5 Penn State, who is preseason number 2. By the way, Penn State has more talent than South Carolina. So I just don't want to, like, I'm just preparing everybody now. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I will go nuclear on all these SEC hacks.
They're getting pretty crazy with the hypotheticals right now. Did you see the hypothetical I reposted today?
I did see it. I forget what it was though.
He said that Florida State would beat every team on Ohio State's schedule.
I mean, that's
Florida
just
State had Ohio State's schedule, they'd be undefeated.
I mean, that's just delusional.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
like, wow, we have
insane.
Really evolved our SEC hypotheticals here, that we have transitioned them to the teams that beat an SEC team as well.
So like 2025 Florida State, who lost to Stanford.
They have one win in the ACC dating back to last year. They beat Cal at home. That's it. That's their only win in the ACC dating back to last year. Which, by the way, Zach, do you know who has the most wins or who has the best record in the SEC since last year?
Is it Texas?
Texas. The team that only won the Big 12 once in like the past 2 decades. The last time they won the Big 12 before 2023 was 2009. They won the Big 12 once since 2009 or 2010, whatever it is. They won the Big 12 once since then. They got to the SEC. They immediately go to the SEC championship game. The next season, they have the best record in the SEC, 10-2. Next best is 10-3.
But it's because Sark is such a genius, and he's brought them back. JR, don't you get it?
Yeah,
Because
I don't get it.
No, I don't either.